structure must be here, yet we cannot see it.
Enterprise.
Hello. This week on Star Trek Sodium, we have Star Trek Next Generation's 12th episode of Season 2, the Royale. Now in this episode, the crew of the Starship Enterprise discover a 20th century hotel casino in space. Not only is a casino discovered, so too was a small pile of Hensing facts. This episode was written by prolific Star Trek writer Tracy Torme, who despite being called Tracy is actually a man. Tracy was famous for his work on Star Trek, as well as Sliders, Saturday Night Live, and possibly a show called The Turnip Chronicles. As a recovering gambling addict, one of the actors refused to act in the scenes set inside the casino in case they are set off again down a path of destruction. Now I can't divulge which actor it was, but she was written extra sickbay scenes to give her something to do in the meantime. Thank goodness that this level of compassion was granted by the show's kind producers and writers. Lesser shows like Knight Rider or Star Wars would have thrown her in at the deep end.
Sir, without communication, we should beam up immediately.
We're here. There's no danger.
In 1987, after Season 1 was filmed, actor Jonathan Frakes was hired as a spokesman for a medical prosthetics company. He would model items from orthopedic shoes to attractive wigs. During one particular convention, Frakes was modeling facial hair. He was trying on a special apparatus for his face for the company when he caught sight of his reflection while urinating. He possibly said in an interview that as soon as he caught sight of himself in a mirror wearing this false beard, he was immediately attracted to himself. He knew that this was the next look that he would try. As soon as he got home that day, he began working hard on growing a beard of his own. It worked out a success, and only 9 weeks later, Season 2 began filming, and he appeared on set with his now famous chin beard. A little known fact about Star Trek, The Next Generation, is that each of the actors has a code name that they went by so that snooping Hollywood reporters would be thrown off of the scent. Possibly uncovered documents show that the following names were used for the Star Trek actors. Leva Burton was called Ripple. Marina Sirtis was called Sucker. Picard actor was known as Red Lace. Riker actor was called Brown Goose. Wesley was called the Ravager. Dr. Pulaski was known as the Crusher, and the Data Man was called Cyclone. Wanting to be part of this group, Star Trek producer Rick Berman insisted that everybody call him the Jellyfish, a name that stays with him even today. While you're watching this soapy episode, those of you with eagle eyes would have noticed that there's a large amount of rear shots in the episode. Nearly all of the main crew came down with the flu during this episode, so production staff with similar body shapes were used as stand-ins. Although it's plainly obvious that the Worf character is nearly a foot shorter from behind, luckily all of the actors recovered exactly when the filming had finished, so they were ready for filming the next episode, which would be filmed after this one. During the time that the actors were out of action with the flu, it was their perfect opportunity to take action against their enemies over at the Short Circuit 2 studio. The war between Star Trek and Short Circuit 2 had really been heating up around this time, and it was time for the Star Trek actors to take revenge against Fisher Stevens and his cronies. The Short Circuit 2 staff were weary of having visitors on set, since somebody had recently broken off one of Johnny Five's arms, but they never for a moment suspected it was done by a Star Trek actor. Still particularly ignorant, the Short Circuit 2 crew welcomed the Star Trek actors into their studio again, not realizing that they were the carriers of a brutal flu that would prohibit them from working efficiently for days on end. Once infected, the Short Circuit 2 actors were too tired to move and were sweating like mad terrorists from under the sea. Worf actor was possibly heard saying that if they were going to get stricken with the flu, then they could take their enemies down with them. Speaking of the Worf actor, at this time his girlfriend was Winona Ryder, and she was visiting the set of Star Trek during the filming of the Royale. She thought that she was being helpful, but the actors soon tired of Winona Ryder's endless acting tips. She would constantly talk to everyone, telling the actors how to do this, how to do that, how to deliver their lines, and correcting the way that they were acting in nearly every way. Rick Berman was asked by Gene Roddenberry to get rid of Winona, but Rick had stars in his eyes for this sweetie. Rick thought that if he could keep Winona Ryder around, she might be tempted to act in Star Trek and give it some real star power. And by that, I mean the power of a famous actor, not that actual power created by a star in space. Winona Ryder, of course, would act in the far future, being in one of those recent Star Trek films, but they're a bit rubbish and nobody likes them. When Gene Roddenberry held the writers' meeting for this episode, which would eventually be based around discovering a recreated hotel casino in space, other ideas for different places had come to Gene first. Originally, he said he wanted an episode set at a gas station in space. Then he changed his mind to a helipad in space. The idea of a brothel didn't last long, and neither did the idea of the Enterprise crew discovering a space golf course. Eventually, Gene had the idea of a hotel casino, which is what you can see in this episode if you look. Now, the casino used in this episode is actually the Grand Casino de Lapin, which is in Monaco. Originally, the producers wanted to cut costs by making a pretend casino in the studio, but pushy actor Patrick Stewart demanded that for authenticity they use a real casino, like the ones that people use in real life. After they couldn't find one in California, they approached the seedy slime dens of Las Vegas and asked if they could film there. But the owners of the Vegas casinos wanted a small fortune for filming there. In the end, it worked out cheaper and much more time efficient to simply fly out the actors and crew to Monaco and film directly in the Grand Casino de Lapin for just a few days of filming, and I'm sure you'll agree, the episode looks like $1 million of money. During the production of this episode, thousands of miles away in England, awful British singing sensation Adele was being born, giving the world another super generically dull, sleep-inducing money vacuum. Hopefully, though, the Borg will send back some drones through time to tear her apart and save the world from at least 1 ounce of a mud song. Thanks ever so much for listening to my very special facts. I hope you appreciated it. And if you did, hit that like button, leave a comment, and if you don't want to, then simply don't bother. Thanks very much, and I'll see you next time, hopefully for some more facts. Ta-ta!